Today we're taking the Brooks Glycerin Max 2 out on their first run. Let's go. Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so the Brooks Glycerin Max 2, and Brooks really mean max with this. I don't think I've ever had a bigger shoe. So much foam in this shoe, so I'm looking forward to putting it through its paces today. Got a nice gentle 6 miles of autumnal Taka trail to run up and down today. Be throwing in some roads and this kind of gravelly hard pack trail to see how it copes. Some quick stats about this shoe then. The Brooks Glycerin Max has a 6mm heel to toe drop, slightly firmer at the forefoot for toe offs, and tons of very squishy foam at the back. This is a new foam from Brooks. Again, their DNA foam, tweaked this time for what Brooks say will provide maximum impact protection. In my size, UK 7.5, this shoe is weighing in at a monstrous 316 grams, which I think puts it easily at the heaviest shoe in my rotation at the moment. And Brooks say it's built for the long runs, the easy miles, and for sometimes going a little bit quicker. So I've just arrived today, I've got them out of the box, got my feet into them, and we're out for a run already. As I say, I'm going to put about 6 miles into them and give you my first impressions, honest review. These are shoes that I bought with my own money. Nobody's paying me to make this review, so my thoughts and opinions are my own. So first impressions right out of the box and getting my foot into them for the first time. First thing I noticed, obviously, is just how big they are. If you live in an old house with low doorways like I do, make sure you put them on outside. You're going to be hitting your head on every doorway. It is like wearing platforms. It's got to be bigger than super shoe height. I'll put the stats on the screen now, just how tall they are. The next thing I noticed is on the midsole, you've got these kind of weird kind of corrugated thing going on with the foam. I've never seen that in the shoe before, but tons of little cutouts there. I'm guessing to make the shoe a little more flexible and maybe take off a tiny bit of weight. The next thing I noticed was the rubber on the outsole. It's really thick, so I'd be expecting to get a good amount of miles out of these shoes to be able to wear that rubber down. At launch, they are costing £180, which puts it up there with premium running shoes. So for £180 for that price, you'd be expecting pretty decent things. It is the plushest, most cushioned shoe in Brooks's lineup, and the first iteration of this shoe received some really good reviews. Okay, so out of the box, slipping my foot into them, and notice they're really well hugged by the upper, and after running in them now for a couple of miles, the upper is quite tight. The toe box isn't quite as wide as I normally like. It's not uncomfortable by any stretch of the imagination, but I think, and I'm hoping after the first few runs, the upper will just stretch out a little bit and become a bit more comfortable. With these engineered mesh uppers, that's often the way. For the first run or two they feel quite tight, but then gradually the upper relaxes and molds to the shape of your foot. But the upper does feel thick. The laces are pretty chunky too, but the lockdown's pretty good. I was just taking them out of the box today, running with them with the laces tied as they come out the factory. More often than not, I'll change that to a runner's sort of shoelace using the top holes. But at the moment, out of the box, the lockdown feels really good. No slipping around the heel, and on the top of my foot, the very plush tongue feels pretty good too. Here's quite a thick upper, so they are running a little bit warm at the moment. But for an early November day, it is quite mild here today. But I think, particularly in this colourway, which is mostly black, I think this is going to be a good choice for logging some winter long miles. All right, so we're coming to the end of this run today. Here are my first impressions. Let's start with the pros. That foam is very comfortable. It isn't like marshmallow soft and squishy, but there is clearly a lot of impact protection running over some pretty sharp and jagged rocks. You can barely feel them. You know, those sharp ones that poke out the ground, sometimes you catch them if you're not concentrating. Barely felt I was running on it. Fantastic stability for something so built up. Usually the taller you go, the more unstable they become. But I think the base of these shoes is so wide that even with that stack height, you've got a really stable shoe. And they're surprisingly punchy for such a heavy shoe. I did feel the weight difference when I first put them on my foot, and those first sort of initial 100 steps, but oh, these are a bit on the heavy side. But after running in them for 4 or 5 miles now, my legs have got used to them, and there is a fair bit of pop in that foam. I wouldn't be reaching for them for speed workouts, but if they were your only pair of shoes, you'd be fine, you get on okay with them. But really they're built for those long runs, those miles on tired legs like today. Had a beast of a session following my own 5k plan that I've written. 10 times 1 kilometer, tempo intervals. Woke up this morning with pretty tired legs, so these were the perfect shoes to put on today for a fairly easy zone 2 run. As I mentioned before, another pro, the lockdown's very good, very secure fit, right out of the box, no issues there. Another plus for this shoe is the noise. Again, usually the bigger the shoe, the wider the shoe, the louder they tend to be. This one isn't too bad at all. Only when I was thinking about sort of what I was going to say in this review did I notice the sound. Actually, they're quite quiet compared to the likes of other built-up shoes that I've reviewed recently. Check out the ASICS Superblast 2 if you haven't watched that already. Another positive in the shoe is the traction is very good. Running on a lot of wet, slippery roads and paths today, loads of leaves, and I haven't noticed any issues with the traction. As for the downsides then, there's only one that I can think of on this initial run, is that they are feeling pretty narrow in that forefoot. A couple of hot spots. Now generally speaking, the midsole sort of softens and molds to the shape of your foot a little bit, so does the upper. So come back for my full review once I've run in them for about 100-200 miles to see how that pans out. This shoe also has a guide rocker, so they sometimes call it a meta rocker, on a race shoe. That's really aggressive, getting that heel to toe pop off. This one's much more gentle, so it's probably in the middle ground. You can just feel it just gently nudging your foot into a correct toe off and landing. So with them not being all that wide around the toe box, like I say, I am noticing a couple of hot spots, and at the moment they're only coming in the standard width. So I'm just going to keep my eye on it with the Brooks Ghost 17. Has a very similar kind of shape and last to that shoe, but I had a similar issue, standard width and hotspots around the big toe area. So for me at least, they could definitely do with being a little bit wider in that toe box. So first impressions, verdict then, are they worth that £180? I think the answer really depends. If you're in the market for a long run shoe, if you're clocking up some big miles during your week and you want to get something really comfortable on your feet, it's going to help you kind of recover and reduce the amount of pounding and impact on your legs, then yes, I think these shoes will definitely be of benefit to you. If you've got a fairly small rotation of shoes, maybe just 1 to 3 pairs, I think these shoes are just about versatile enough to be called a daily trainer. You could probably get away with wearing these for most of your runs with everything except the quickest of speed work. With them being one of Brooks' more high-end shoes, I am expecting them to go the distance, and nothing about the build quality gives me any worries. More often than not, I can get at least 500 miles out of Brooks shoes, which makes the steep cost slightly more value, kind of budget friendly. But I would say they're a surprising shoe. First impressions aren't always the most reliable, so when you see them on the Brooks website you think, they are big and chunky, and they come out the box looking that way too. But on your feet, even though they feel heavy in your hand, they don't feel so heavy underfoot. The rocker's nice, sort of gently guiding your foot. The foam does feel really soft, and my legs do feel more rested now at the end of this run than they did a couple of hours ago when they're feeling a bit sore and tight after yesterday's. I think at the moment at launch they're coming in 2 colorways. You've got this green and black colorway with just sort of hints of blue, and a white midsole, of course. I think these look great. They're my club colors, so I'm obviously going to lean towards them. And then I think they've got a lighter color, and I think for once the design of these shoes for Brooks, they've actually got it pretty spot on. Often, in my opinion, Brooks shoes aren't that exciting to look at, but these look pretty good, and they're not giving me any of that kind of dad shoe vibe that I usually get from Brooks. I'm going to spend the next month or so putting on 100-200 miles on these shoes, so come back for my long-term review. But until then, happy running, and I'll see you in the next one.